had Michelle Bachmann on, and I respect Michelle, and I think she's a very intelligent woman. I think she is a patriot. I think she is a God-centered woman. I don't think she is afraid of very much. I think she has had her life turned upside down, and if she wasn't a God-fearing woman, her life would have been destroyed. But her life isn't about stuff or about job titles or anything else. Her life is based on her God. And so she is moving forward. And I have profound respect for her as a congressman and also as a person. She's a friend. However, I believe she is wildly misguided on this NSA thing. And I don't know where the disconnect is. So let me just go through this. Here's what Michelle Bachmann and I, after the last 30 minutes, this is what we agree on. Now, this whole thing started with her not voting to defund the NSA. Huge mistake.
Not the entire NSA, just that one program.
Here's what should have been the entire thing. Here's what we agree on. One, the government has access to everything, and that is gaining speed. They are consolidating power, and information is power, and they are consolidating it. They can listen. I'm not saying they are. They can listen. This is what we agree on, to everything. All keystrokes, all phone calls, everything. And they can store. She will say that they are only doing that with foreigners. I will agree with her that they are doing it with foreigners and calls to foreign entities. We agree on that. We agree that we do have FISA courts, and that those FISA courts were set up through the Patriot Act, and the guy who started the Patriot Act says this is out of control, and he's out. We agree on that. We agree that they are about to collect and store all data, including your health records and your family relationships and your personal employment information. Everything will be stored. We agree on that. We also agree that they can do these things. They are doing at least what they claim with foreigners. We also agree that the IRS and the AP scandal, the IRS, they first said that they didn't do any of this. They didn't target Tea Parties. The IRS, which is going to be in charge of your health care information, that they lied to you there, that the DOJ said that they were not listening through a FISA court, they weren't listening to the people on Fox, and then later admitted, oh, yes, okay, we are. So we agree that the government is not trustworthy. And I think we agree that there's not enough transparency to catch them and stop them quickly enough should things go wrong. That's what we agree on. Now, Michelle, somehow or another, disconnects at that point and says, yeah, we agree on all that. But when I say, then they have too much power and they have too much access, we need to stop them, she says security. I say, yes, well, security, but just because you're currently a good guy doesn't make you always a good guy, especially if you have already presented yourself as pretty much a criminal entity where you'll lie, cheat, and steal just to hold on to power. So instead of addressing Michelle Bachmann, let me address anybody who used to bash Bush. Anybody who used to say, oh, Dick Cheney is Darth Vader. They're building a Death Star. Anybody who said, you know, he's a Nazi. And the reason why I say that is because they're spying on their citizens and they're collecting data just like the Nazis used to. Let me talk to anybody who used to say about George W. Bush, silencing the press through intimidation. Let me address anybody who has ever said or even thought of saying, don't trust anybody over 30. Anybody who said don't trust the government because of these right-wing zealots that are in charge. You're just a lemming if you follow them. If you said any of those things, from the Death Star to the Nazi to the silencing press to don't trust the government, where are you now? Now, you're going to say, well, where were you under George? Let me explain. I'll tell you right where it was. About 2006, but 2004, 2006, I had a wake-up call. It was right after the 2004 election. I thought something's not right here. I started doing my own homework. I started realizing, wait a minute, George Bush is not the guy who he says he is. I didn't understand what progressivism was at the time. And people were like, he's a New World Order guy. And in fact, he probably is a New World Order guy. Definitely. His father definitely is. And I think George Bush is as well. But more importantly, he's a progressive, a consolidate power. And I didn't understand that because I was dumb enough to think that we all believed in the Constitution. No, Republicans believe in the Constitution. Look, we all believe in the Constitution, but there are times that we have to do what we have to do. No. We believe in the Constitution or we don't believe in the Constitution. One of the two. It's not I believe in it today, but tomorrow it's inconvenient. It's an absolute. And so in 2004 and 2006, I started thinking, wait a minute, we're picking and choosing here. This isn't right. And I started speaking out while George Bush was in office. See, so where I was somebody that had not enough information. And the reason why I've changed is because I have been given additional information that yes, the government was being nefarious back then. They were creating some of the things that you were saying that they were creating, that we were saying, no, they're not. They're not going to do that. They'll never do that. Oh, yeah, yes. They did. They have. And it has only gotten worse. So I can tell you my pivot point was between 2004 and 2006 when I started questioning things. And my absolute rock solid pivot point was on the border. When we started going after border guards for the border, I started saying, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense at all with what George Bush says he believes. That doesn't make sense. That was my absolute rock solid pivot point. Something's wrong. So I've gotten new information that has made your point stronger. And if you were somebody who said, they're a Death Star, Nazi Darth Vader that's silencing the press, you lemming, can you point to the information that has shown me that this situation, since when you were ringing the bell and I was saying that you were a conspiracy nut, can you show me the information that made you pivot back to where I was? Show me the information that says, no, Glenn. I know I was saying this because we should be able to have a really reasonable conversation, and you should be able to clear this up for me really easy. Because you're apparently ahead of me. Because you were ahead of me during Bush, you must be ahead of me now. Show me the information that has alleviated all of your concerns. Either that or you're not consistent. You're only about politics. See, we have to have somebody that talks about the truth and not politics. What has changed your mind? I can tell you what changed my mind. And it happened before the election. So tell me what changed your mind. And because I know the standard that you will hold me to, I certainly hope that your mind started to be changed during the Bush administration and just didn't suddenly magically change as soon as your guy got in. That's my biggest problem with Michelle. We can agree on all of these things. We don't have to have the evidence that it is worse. We don't have to have the evidence that they're actually storing, even though we will put the whistleblowers on radio tomorrow, where they're actually storing stuff, where they are. And we know because they had a gun pointed to their head by our own people. Their lives have been destroyed by our own people. They've lived it. They helped design the system. And then they said, wow, this is getting out of control. We got to get out of here. Okay, so I can point to those, but we don't even have to go that far. If you just agree that they have access to everything, they can listen, and they are listening to foreign entities, that we have FISA courts, and the guy who started the Patriot Act says it's out of control. They're about to collect and store all data. They can do at least what they're claiming, but they have shown themselves to be untrustworthy and liars when it comes to intimidation and using data and FISA courts in their own words, and there's not a lot of transparency. Why exactly would we think this government agency was going to keep us safe? How exactly, besides a George Bush line, I had to destroy the free market system in order to save the free market system? How is it any different to say I had to destroy freedom to be able to preserve freedom? It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. No matter how big the threat is, you cannot destroy freedom to preserve freedom. You cannot destroy the free market system to save the free market system. Help me out.
And is it just me, or did this president not even go as far as Michelle Bachmann went on this program? Not even this president said that the NSA All he said was they weren't listening to your phone calls. He never said they weren't storing them. Did he?
Yeah, no.
I mean,
no.
to my knowledge,
no. She said they're not listening or storing.
They're not. She said they're not even storing the content.
Then what are they storing in those giant
databases? Say that. Yeah, he didn't even say that. He didn't go there. He just specifically said, and he made a point of saying nobody's listening to your phone calls. He didn't go as far as she did.
She seemed to try to keep it really specific to the Verizon phone call scandal thing, which was the metadata,
which really bothers me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think she, again, this is my speculation by listening to that interview, but it seems like she really believes in that program and thinks it's really important, and she thinks that it's necessary, and because it's not content related, it should be okay, and she has some Supreme Court rulings to that effect that would back her up on that. I don't think that that's okay at all, and I think that she kept it specific to that program so that she didn't have to talk about other programs, and that she might not be clear to talk about, but B, I think are at this point out in the public domain enough to be discussed, and it's not just this one program.
No, she can't discuss. There are things that even if it's out in public domain, she cannot discuss them. That's just the way the law is. I think it's a giant trap myself, but she can't discuss them. But to stay centered on one little program, the problem is with the NSA. The problem is the NSA has far too much power and should be defunded. And if you can get them, I mean, we put Al Capone away for tax evasion. What are you talking about? Put him away. Defund the program. And I know, well, we can't do that because I'm sorry. If everybody else is jumping off a bridge, I'm not going to jump off a bridge. Let's not become everything we despise. You know, the NSA whistleblowers told me, they said, you'll never get anybody in Washington to do it because they'll always say everybody else has the information. You're going to be in the dark because everybody else has this information. Yes, if it means we keep our values, yes. We don't spy on our own people. I hate to say it. Yes. No spying on our own people.